Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Agyantimirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanyebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this morning we continue with the prayers of the personified Vedas. It's pretty awesome stuff. Wouldn't you say? It's very nice. And in this way, the Vedas are, in a sense, capsulizing what's taken place in the 10th canto with all the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and is kind of giving us a snapshot of what it all means. How does it all fit together? And it over and over again, of course, it comes down to this is the Supreme Lord. He's the one from which everything emanates, and it not only is our duty, but our highest and greatest eternal felicity to worship him, to make him the supreme object of all of our desire and all of our affection, all of our sacrifice. And so that's what the Vedas are doing right now. They're summing up everything that's come before in the 10th canto in a way that answers the question for us, so what? What do we do now? How do we proceed after hearing all of this? And it's important that anyone who wants to approach Shastra, scripture like the Srimad Bhagavatam, realize that you can't just approach the 10th canto without having read carefully everything that goes before. Otherwise, you wind up thinking that Krishna is just an ordinary cad, ordinary womanizer. And many come to that conclusion, actually, much to their own detriment and ultimate demise. And we can see that that's the case by reading these prayers. Reading these prayers kind of takes everything that's gone before, not just in the 10th canto, but in all the categories that were learned about Krishna and the spiritual world and all of his avatars and expansions and parts and plenary parts and portions and the material energy, the spiritual energy, so forth and so on, and how this all fits together. And it fits together very nicely in something we call bhakti yoga. So let's go ahead and look at verse 23 from the 10th canto, chapter 87, the Vedas personified. Speak to Lord Krishna and pray to Lord Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm going to kind of just read this in a simple chant because I can never get the meter to this. I apologize. I'm Sanskritically challenged. Nibrita marun mano kshadridha yoga yujo hridiyan. Nibrita marun mano kshadridha yoga yujo hridiyan. Munnaya upasate tararayo piyayu smaranat. Striya urajendra boga bujadanda vishakta dio. Vayamapi te samadristo giri saroj sudha. Would somebody like to take a lead on this one? Any of you? Thank you. Pasate Tadarayu. Control. Marut, with breathing. Manaha, mind. Aksha, and senses. Dridha yoga, in steadfast yoga. Yujaha, engaged. Hridi, in the heart. Yat, which. Muniyaha, sages. Upasate, worship. Tat, that. Arayaha, enemies. Api, also. Yuyuhu, attained. Smaranat, by remembering. Striya, women. Uraga Indra, of lordly serpents. Boga, like the bodies. Bhuja, whose arms, Danda, rod-like, Vishakta, attracted, Dhiyaha, whose minds, Vayam, we, Api, also, Te, to you, Samaha, equal, Sama, equal, Drishaha, whose vision, Angiri, of the feet, Saroja, lotus-like, Sudaha, relishing the nectar. Translation and purport by the servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Simply by constantly thinking of Him, the enemies of the Lord attained the same supreme truth whom sages fixed in yoga worship by controlling their breath, mind, and senses. Similarly, we Shrutis, who generally see you as all-pervading, will achieve the same nectar from your lotus feet that your consorts are able to relish because of their loving attraction to your mighty serpentine arms. For you look upon us and your consorts in the same way. It's a little lengthy, so I'm going to have you repeat after me. We'll go through this once more. Simply by constantly thinking of Him, the enemies of the Lord attained the same supreme truth whom sages fixed in yoga worship by controlling their breath, mind, and senses. Similarly, we Shrutis, who generally see you as all-pervading, will achieve the same nectar from your lotus feet that your consorts are able to relish because of their loving attraction to your mighty serpentine arms. For you look upon us and your consorts in the same way. Purport. According to Acharya Sri Jiva Goswami, the few Shrutis, such as the Gopalatapani Upanishad, who identify the cowherd boy Krishna with absolute Brahman in its highest aspect, had so far been patiently waiting for their turn to speak. But after hearing the other Shrutis offer prayers openly glorifying the Lord's personality, these intimate Shrutis could no longer contain themselves, and so they spoke out of turn in this verse. Followers of the path of mystic yoga subdue their senses and minds by practicing breath control and severe austerities. If they succeed in thoroughly purifying themselves by this regimen, they may eventually begin to realize the Paramatma, the personal form of Brahman within the heart. If they continue this meditation without deviation for a long time, they may in the end come to the point of true God consciousness. But the same objective, achieved in this difficult and uncertain way, was also attained by the demons who were killed by Lord Krishna during his pastimes on the earth. Obsessed with enmity toward him, demons like Kamsa and Shishupal quickly obtained the perfection of liberation simply by his killing them. Speaking for themselves, however, the personified Vedas here state that they would prefer to develop love of Godhead by learning to emulate the favorable surrender of Lord Krishna's confidential devotees, especially the young gopis of Braj. Though they appeared to be simple women, attracted conjugally to the Lord's physical beauty and strength, the goddesses of Vraj exhibited the highest perfection of meditation. The Shrutis wished to become just like them. In this regard, Lord Brahma relates the following historical account in the supplement to the Brihad Vamana Purana. Quote, "The infinite world of spiritual bliss is called Vaikuntha. There the supreme truth lives, being glorified by the personified Vedas, who are also present there. Once, after the Vedas had elaborately praised him, the Lord felt especially satisfied and spoke to them in a voice whose source remained invisible. My dear sages, I am very satisfied with you. Please ask me some benediction that you secretly desire." The Shrutis replied, "We have developed the desire to become like the cowherd women of the mortal world, who, inspired by lust, worship you in the mood of a lover." Then the Lord said, "This desire of yours is difficult to fulfill. Indeed, it is almost impossible. But since I am sanctioning it, your wish must inevitably come true." When the next Brahma takes his birth to faithfully execute his duties of creation, and when the day of his life called Saraswata Kalpa arrives, you will all appear in Braj as gopis. On the earth in the land of Bharata, in my own district of Mathura, in the forest of Vrindavan, I will become your beloved in the circle of the rasa dance. Nice promise, huh? On the earth in the land of Bharata, in my own district of Mathura, in the forest of Vrindavan, I will become your beloved in the circle of the rasa dance. Thus, obtaining me as your paramour, you will all gain the most exalted and steadfast pure love for me, and in this way you will fulfill all your ambitions. Lord Brahma said, after hearing these words, the Shrutis meditated on the personality of Godhead's beauty for a long time. When the designated time ultimately arrived, they became gopis and obtained the association of Krishna. A similar account can be found in the Shrishti Kanda of the Padma Purana, which describes how the Gayatri mantra also became a gopi. Regarding the development of bhakti, Lord Krishna further states in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Aputaputo bhavati yam mam smritva, avrati vrati bhavati yam mam smritva, nishkamaha sakamo bhavati yam mam smritva, Ashrotri, Shrotri, Bhavati Yam Mam Smitwa. Quote, by remembering me, one who is impure becomes pure. By remembering me, one who follows no vows becomes a strict follower of vows. By remembering me, one who is desireless develops desires to serve me. By remembering me, one who has studied no Vedic mantras becomes an expert knower of the Vedas. The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 4.5.6 refers to the gradual steps in the process of becoming Krishna conscious. Atmava are drastavyaha strotavyo mantavyo nididhyasetavyaha. Quote, it is the self which must be observed, heard about, thought of, and meditated upon with fixed concentration. The idea here is that one should realize the Supreme Self as directly visible in his full personality by the following means. First, one should hear the instructions of a qualified representative of the Paramatma and take the words of such a spiritual master into one's heart by offering him humble service and striving in all ways to please him. One should then ponder the divine message of the spiritual master continuously, with the aim of dispelling all one's doubts and misconceptions. Then one can proceed to meditate on the Supreme Lord's lotus feet with total conviction and determination. So-called Gyanis may think that the Upanishads praise nirvishesha, impersonal realization of the Supreme, as more complete and final than shavishesha, personal worship of the Supreme Godhead. All honest Vaishnavas, however, join in adhering to the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, always meditating with pleasure on his infinitely wonderful, variegated spiritual qualities. In the words of the Shruti mantras, quote, to that person whom the Supreme Lord chooses, he becomes obtainable. To that person, the Supreme Soul reveals his personal form. Katha Upanishad 1.2.23 and Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.3. Srila Sridhar Swami concludes with the prayer, quote, O Lord, loving remembrance of your lotus feet is very rarely achieved. Please, O Nrihari, somehow arrange for me to have that remembrance day and night. Well, one thing that is very clear from from this text and the purport that follows and the quotations of the various Shrutis, Upanishads, and this is also very evident in anyone's personal experience. If you're at all observable of your inner process and your thoughts, but most of us think about strongly what we desire. Would everyone agree with that? What you desire strongly predominates your mind and your thinking processes. Desire is one of those indispensable characteristics of the living entity. It is a part of the Dharma, as it were, the law of being, that which cannot be taken away from the living entity is desire. And this is what makes the yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Hatha yoga processes so difficult to achieve in any age, let alone the age of Kali, is because it is an attempt to become desireless, or at least to narrow one's desires to the point of cutting off all sensual stimuli, anything coming through the eyes, through the ears, through the nose, through the tongue, through the touch. We're going to minimize the gates of the senses down to the point where almost nothing comes in, and then we'll set our mind and intention hopefully upon the Paramatma. And that's not always the case. Some yogis are looking for an impersonal result. Many do. Probably in this age of Kali, most are after an impersonalistic type of yoga or union. It's almost impossible. It is impossible, especially for those of us in this age. It's a very, 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 very rare soul that can come into any age, except if you're maybe in the age of Satya Yuga. In Satya Yuga, everybody is a yogi, basically. And then as we go into Treta Yuga, Dwarapa Yuga, and now, of course, Kali Yuga, it becomes successively more difficult to follow this process of yoga meditation. But what makes it most difficult is the fact that we are made to desire. We are made to desire. And most specifically, we're wired spiritually. We're wired for pleasure, for bliss, for satisfaction. It is our dharma. It is a part of the very nature of our being to desire. You cannot, Srila Prabhupada says, you cannot turn off desire. You cannot turn off desire. It is impossible. And yet we know that in order to come to a state of Krishna consciousness and to actually see the Supreme Lord, we have to go through a process of fixing our mind upon him, right? Over and over again in this purport, so many times it was mentioned, you must think about the Lord, you must think about his form, you must think about his pastimes, and so forth, and you must think upon him for a long time and with riveted attention, with rapt attention. And then eventually the Lord reveals himself to you. You become purified enough where you can actually see him in the heart. But if my desires are for other things other than Krishna, how do I go from the place of having all of these desires that are dominating my thoughts? How do I go from the place when I have so many desires competing for my thoughts and consuming my thought processes to the point where sometimes I become crazy from it? Can anybody relate to that? Sometimes becoming crazy, almost insane. You say, if I can't stop thinking about this, I'm going to go mad. And it can be infuriating. And yet, how many of us do also at another sincere, genuine level desire Lord Krishna, to know him and to love him and to be with him? Right? To a certain degree. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I can't imagine somebody being here on a Tuesday morning who doesn't desire Krishna. I mean, why else would we be in a temple like this, right? So we can say that we don't desire, that no, I only desire material things. try to have a level of humility that way. But the truth is if we're honest, we're practicing bhakti yoga because we also desire at some level Lord Krishna. He has touched our lives in a way through his devotees, through a book, through the deities, through eating prasadam and coming to the Sunday feast or whatever it is. Krishna has touched your life in a certain way that you've said, okay, I know there's something more, and now I know what that more is, or potentially what that more is. And so I'm going to begin to experiment with this and see if I can't find the happiness that I'm looking for in Krishna consciousness. So at the very least, we're practicing bhakti because we've come to that place, and that's genuine desire. Krishna awakes in us a desire for him. But he doesn't just take us all the way to the end finish line, to the goal. And there's a reason for that. It's because if we're here, we got here because of what we desired. If we've come to the material world, it's because at a certain point from time immemorial, we desired to be like Krishna. We desired to own, control, enjoy, create, dominate, predominate, and love and possess like Krishna. And in one sense, we can see this place as a punishment and as a correction. And of course it is, but it also is very much so a loving father fulfilling the desires of his children. By saying, okay, that's what you want. It's impossible for you to own, control, and enjoy anything. But because you want to have that experience, I'm going to create a place for you to go have that experience. And because it can never be, you and I can never be the owner, controller, and enjoyer of anything in the ultimate sense. We can never be him. He has to create a place where that becomes an illusion, where we have the illusion of owning, the illusion of control, the illusion of enjoying. And that's what this place is. So if we're here, it's because at a certain point we had certain desires, and those desires led us into an illusory realm by the mercy of Krishna. And so we're learning by desire and fulfillment of desire, little by little over millions of lives, that we can never be like him. We can never be the supreme, ever. But each individual has to learn that for themselves. And so we come and we desire, and the Lord fulfills, giving us the illusion of control. We desire, he fulfills. We desire, he fulfills. And we think it's us. But over long, long periods of time, we hopefully finally come to the place where we realize that none of this is making us happy. In fact, it's making us more miserable. We start life thinking, oh yeah, this, that, and the other, and those things will make me happy. And once I get into school and I'm no longer with mommy, then I'll be happy. Once I get out of elementary school and I get into junior high school, then I'll be happy. Oh man, high school. Once I finish grade school and I get into high school, that's really going to do it. Man, once I get my degree and I'm able to go out and get a job, then I'm really going to be happy. You know what? I think I need a mate. I need a wife. That's going to make me happy. I think I need some kids. That's going to make me happy. You know what? I can't wait for the kids to get out of the house and we can retire. That's really going to make me happy. And we get to the end of life and we realize that we're more miserable than when we started. So, then we get sick and we die and we come back to do it all over again. Yeehaw! rebirth. So desire is everything. Desire is what determines our experiences. It determines Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki. Desire determines what we experience. This is why the Shastra tells us that if we desired only Krishna, absolutely 100% purely only Krishna, we would see Krishna instantly. Even if you're still here in this realm, if you desired him 100% purely with no other competing or contradicting desires, we wouldn't be here. He'd take us back. So it's a continuum, right? It's a continuum. We have to go through this process of learning little by little that we can't be like him, and little by little we continue to turn towards him over and over and over again. We realize, okay, if I chant Hare Krishna, then I'll be happy. And we do. We get a level of happiness. We go, that's pretty good. But it's still mixed. Maybe if I go worship the deities at that temple, I'll be happy. And you come, and you participate in the services and in the worship and darshan of Lord Krishna. That adds a little more. And you go, wow, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy. That's add some happiness, but it's still mixed. And you say, well, maybe if I read those books, start reading those books every day, you add that in. And it gets a little better and a little better. And then finally, we're all in. We're all in, or we should be. We're all in. We're ready to surrender everything. Say, I'm now convinced that my highest felicity, my greatest and only true desire is to restore my relationship with Lord Krishna and to have his transcendental association and service, even if I'm in hell. Even if he handles me roughly by his embraces, even if he makes me brokenhearted by taking the sense of his presence away. To have his service and association is the best, and I will sacrifice everything for that. We're all in. But how do we really get to that place? And there are some instructions here that we read, and I want to open it up to see how well we listened today and talk about the instructions that are given. I'm going to read them one more time, and then we can spend the remainder of the time discussing these. One moment. Here it is. Okay. The Brihad, I'll just read the one just before that. Regarding the development of Bhakti Yoga, Lord Krishna further states in the Gopala Tapani Upanishad, by remembering me, one who is impure becomes pure. By remembering me, one who follows no vows becomes a strict follower of vows. By remembering me, one who is desireless develops desires to serve me. By remembering me, one who has studied no Vedic mantras becomes an expert knower of the Vedas. The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 4, 5, 6 refers to the gradual steps in the process of becoming Krishna conscious. It is the self which must be observed, heard, thought of, and meditated upon with fixed concentration. The idea here is that one should realize the Supreme Self is directly visible in his full personality by the following means. Here they are. First, one should hear the instructions of a qualified representative of the Paramatma and take the words of such a spiritual master into one's heart by offering him humble service and striving in all ways to please him. One should then ponder the divine message of the spiritual master continuously, with the aim of dispelling all one's doubts and misconceptions. In other words, get rid of our hesitancy that we have until we're all in. Then one can proceed to meditate on the Supreme Lord's lotus feet with total conviction and determination. Okay, so I want to open it up at this point, and actually, rather than me make all the applications, because I wind up taking all the time, every time, I would like us to have a discussion, realizations, thoughts, questions, but mostly what you've heard this morning that will stick with you, or what hearing this, what things it brings to mind in terms of how you've had success in the process of bhakti yoga. Yes, everyone here has had successes by the mercy of Krishna and Guru. So I want to hear your insights. And if not, I'll keep speaking. That's a threat. I'll keep... Yes, Murari Prabhu.
Tadvidi pratipranena, that sloka which we surrendered and we submissively ask and we does some service to spiritual master, and he instructs theoretically. But when we put in the practice, every individual has got different type of practice to achieve our goal ultimately. How we should stick to these practical things by after hearing the theory from Bhagavatam, spiritual master, all other classes, everything.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. Now this Shruti, which attained as gopis, they must have done some pious activity in the previous, whatever, whether they are glorifying the Supreme Lord. That itself is a qualification they have got. So what are the practical things we have to do in the life to follow these theories, whatever spoken?
Excellent question. Thank you. So the Shrutis, of course, were doing what they were made to do, and that is they were made to glorify the Supreme Lord. These specific ones were made by the Lord to glorify him in his personal aspect, according to this purport. And and by doing so, they pleased him. And as a result of him being pleased by their service, he drew them closer, and eventually they became gopis. He actually asked them what benediction they wanted. Of course, knowing what benediction they did want, they wanted to be like the gopis. But they, as you're pointing out very rightly, they didn't just arrive there without doing something practical. And so the answer is to be like the Shrutis and to do those types of things that you're made to do, those types of things that are according to your propensities and level of intelligence and your desires, actually. And so most of us need help with this. We need someone to help guide us and say, you know, I think that you would be very good and very happy doing this particular service. And then, you know, we put our hand to it and we practically do that service. We should always do these things in concert with a guide of some sort, whether it be a Diksha Guru or some Shiksha Guru that we've chosen, that we have someone helping us so that we're not just operating whimsically. Oh, well, I would like to do this, you know, and we put our hand to some service. But two things there. It may not be the thing that really is for you, because we often desire things for ourselves that are really totally inconsistent with who we really are. So having that outside input is very important. And the second thing is if it's only coming from my own whimsical nature, then it's not really something that you're offering to Krishna. We want to serve Krishna the way Krishna desires. And one of the ways that we know specifically is to have someone who is a guide actually say, this is what I want you to do. And so I'll use myself as an example. After several years of getting to know my spiritual master, he said, I think that you would do really well helping me to record and edit the audiobooks. And I was pretty content before with my service. I was serving the deities in Denver and holding space for some of the young men in the brahmachari ashram there, doing readings with them and giving shelter, that sort of thing. But it wasn't until he really discerned what it is that I would be really good at. He brought me here, and it's like my life has changed by leaps and bounds. My experience of Krishna has changed by leaps and bounds. But I could have never really chose that for myself. I don't think I would have, as still being somewhat of a young man, I probably would have picked something for myself more grand, or more outwardly prestigious. Who knows? But so yeah, we have to do something practical. We have to find some service under the direction of the authority structures that Krishna has put into our society, and find something to do for him. It's always going to include hearing and chanting, worshiping the deities, remembering Krishna in the midst of our work, befriending him, praying to him, and so forth. But everyone must work in this world. And so we find that work that will purify us and increase our desire for Lord Krishna and his association. Does that answer the question? Hare Krishna. Yes, Mata.
I don't consider myself that I'm a very successful practicant, but I feel like I get a lot of happiness from Krishna. And I think that he's giving me all this because, I'll do the basics like the chanting and some service, but I talk to him all day, even when I'm sleeping, night and day, and I'm always asking forgiveness for my sins and ask him to guide my day, to help me to change the bad things, to help me focus on him. And he always answers. He always answers. And I always, I'm grateful for what he gives me. And I talk to him, I tell him, I know that this is only your causeless mercy. I know I don't deserve anything. It's only your causeless mercy. And that's what it has worked for me.
Very nice. So everybody's in a different place, and some are going to have a more active thing that they need to do, washing dishes, cooking for the deities, doing the gardening. And some may be at a place where their service becomes more of an internal serving of Krishna, and that's what it sounds like you're expressing. So, Pranahari.
Well, I heard from your class and the text and purport a lot about the remembrance of the Lord and how that is how Kamsa and the other demons attained liberation, whereas the yogis who are practicing for so long may not even attain the Lord, but the demons do. And then I like this Sridhar Swami's prayer about loving remembrance is very rarely achieved, so please somehow or other arrange for that, that remembrance day and night. And you were making the point about how if you desire something, that desire, whatever it is, it pervades one's thoughts. And I was reflecting on the verse that is from Padma Purana that Rupa Goswami quotes in Nectar and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu about how one should always remember the Lord and never forget Him. Those two rules, all other rules and regulations are servants of those two rules, to always remember Krishna and never forget Him. And basically that's part of what Vaidhi sadhana bhakti means, is that everything we do is to keep us in constant remembrance and avoid even a moment of forgetfulness of Krishna, because by that remembrance is how we develop that desire. As Krishna says in the 12th chapter of the Gita, that atachitam samadatum na shaknosi mayistra. He says, if you can't always meditate on me ceaselessly, engaging your mind and intelligence always in me, then you have to practice these regulative principles of bhakti yoga, and that by that you attain the desire by which, or you develop the desire to attain me. So those regulative principles of bhakti yoga are Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, and the main principle, the whole reason why all these vidhis are there, the reason why we do everything we do, is to remember Krishna, as this verse from Rupa Goswami of Padma Purana states, always remembering Krishna, never forget Him. So I thought that today's verse in purport was really highlighting this point about I also like that quote that you just read again, how we hear from the Guru and we serve the spiritual master, and then we contemplate the teachings, which I thought was interesting. We don't usually think that. We think, then we apply the teachings, but here it said first to contemplate them. I mean, we should do that. It seems like that is important, because if we don't come back to this point of that remembrance of Krishna is actually the main purpose of our whole Vaidhi sadhana practice, then we will not develop that desire to attain Krishna. If we're doing everything but we forget Krishna, then what's the point of that?
Yes.
So it seemed like that contemplation on the spiritual master's instructions is an essential ingredient.
Yes.
So thanks for highlighting that.
Yes. Hare Krishna. So all of these things have the one goal in mind, and that goal is to always remember Krishna and never forget Him. So for instance, when we are in need of doing some practical service, the spiritual master will always help us pick something, some type of practical service that will allow us, that would be most conducive for us to remain Krishna conscious, that will allow us to remain fixed on his person, that will allow us, the optimal opportunity to focus on Krishna. And sometimes that even means just simply focusing on the fact that, hey, I'm doing this for Krishna. You know, let's say it's digging ditches in the yard of the temple because we're putting a fence up, and you've got to be really attentive, and you're not necessarily practically thinking about Krishna the whole time, but you're putting all of your senses into this work, knowing, hey, this is a work that Krishna has given me to do, and I'm going to do it with the utmost attentiveness and quality and so forth. And so eventually all of these things are supposed to lead towards one goal, and that is that we will always remember the actual form of Krishna and his pastimes and never forget him. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki. In the beginning, it may mean that we dig a hole and we can't necessarily, we're digging holes in the yard and we can't necessarily actually fix our mind on Krishna's form because we're having to dig a hole and engage our senses in this work. But all of these things are meant to lead. And I like the verse that you brought up where Krishna says, you know, think of me all the time, and if you can't do that, then do these regulative principles of bhakti, and if you can't do that, then work for me. And if you can't do that, then take the fruit of your labor and give it to me. So it's almost like he's gotten rid of every avenue or excuse that we could come up with from doing this. So there's anywhere we are, whoever we are, wherever we've been, whatever we've done, there's a place for us to start on this path. Shamasundar Prabhu. The goal is always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him.
You know, that's, I think I have been practicing that how we can practically remember Krishna. So the things that I'm doing in my life, that when I change any activities, like when I will leave, take prasadam and then go toward my home, I will pray to Krishna and I will inform him that now Krishna, I have finished my morning program and now I'm going to the home. Mm-hmm. At the home, whatever the duty I'm going to do, it may be watching even the news on the television. I tell Krishna that this is what I'm going to do. So at least it reminds me. And when I read this in this purport, those 4 advantages by remembering Krishna, I think that I will develop and practice more and more deeper, that how I can remember more and more. Yes. Because those 4 things is excellent. That impurity will go away by remembering, you become pure. If you cannot follow any vow, you will be able to follow strictly. If you have no desire, you will create the desire in the heart how to serve him. And even though we are not expert in reciting the mantras, you will get the knowledge within your heart, which is what we need in our life. One more thing that I would like to share, that because I think somehow or other by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, he put me in a situations that even though you don't want to do something, but something will come because you are in a managerial positions. So I think that has helped me quite a bit, that even though I'm slacking off something will come up that need the attention. I'll have to run down, do this, do this, do this. So I think that's also very helpful, even though we don't directly remember Krishna, but we are using our senses and the body in service of Krishna. So Krishna will be kind, that he will appear in some other form.
Yes, indeed. Hare Krishna. I like this example that you give, and if I understand correctly, it's part of what's meant by befriending Krishna, where you, no matter what activity you're doing, you're taking him there with you and saying, okay, Krishna, now we're we're going to pick up on the news, or now we're going to take our walk, our constitutional walk, or now we're going to chant our rounds. And that way, in this way, this is how we are with our friends on a human level. We like them to come and do whatever we do. They can come with us and do that. We really should do that with Krishna. So, yes.
I just wanted to make another comment because I thought of from what Shyamsundar Prabhu said about having to manage and stuff like that. How I was just thinking in bhakti, the means and the end are the same. So the means to attain the goal and the goal themselves are the same actually. Like the rules and regulations which we follow of worshiping the deity and chanting and visiting the temple and all these 64 angas of bhakti we do are the means by which we remember Krishna, and by that remembrance we are purified to ever more advanced stages of bhakti. But also that's the end, the goal too. So one who's a perfect devotee in their relationship with Krishna, what are they doing for Krishna? They're serving him. And that's I just wanted to make that point, because some people may say, well then, if the goal is to remember Krishna, then I give up my service and become a bhajana nandi and just, I'll remember Krishna, go into whatever, Leela Smaranam, 24 hours a day. Of course,
if you can do that, but most people can't. That's quite impossible for 99.9% of the human
it's impractical.
beings.
But also the point is that our acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, and the gopis themselves, since we're hearing in this verse, Prabhupada said, book distribution and the Sankirtan movement is actually in the mood of the gopis, because they want to increase Krishna's pleasure, and part of that is to bring more and more souls to serve him, to increase the number of souls that are serving him, and that'll increase his pleasure. So that in itself is way beyond just some sort of Vaidhi practice and purifying process. It's actually the ultimate end goal of one's perfect relationship with Krishna, is actually to preach and to serve the devotees. So I just want to make that point, because some people think like that well, then I'll just give up my service. But that's actually the goal in itself of the service, is more service.
This is why we must always follow in the footsteps of our previous acharyas. Bhakti isn't what I think it is or what I want it to be. Bhakti is a particular science that's given to us. So we have to follow in the footsteps of our previous acharyas under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So otherwise we can make decisions for ourselves that aren't necessarily the best thing for us, I'll give us one example of that. It's an extreme example, then we'll end. It'll just take about 30 seconds. There was a man who was coming to the temple, and he was there almost every day, but kind of also staying on the fringe, but getting to know everybody. And he was around for about a year, and it was very difficult to get him involved in a way where he would actually come and say, tell me what I need to do, He seemed very sincere, but he would never ask, never inquire. And one day he came to me and he said, I just came to say goodbye for a month because Krishna wants me to go to the mountains and fast strictly. So I'm going up to the mountains all on my own, and I'm going to fast. And I was like, that sounds really dangerous. I don't think you want to do that. And I tried to reason with him to tell him why that wasn't a good idea, but he was convinced. And he went, and in 4 days he wound up in the hospital. He wouldn't listen to reason. And so that's an extreme example, but without guidance and without following in the footsteps of someone who's actually already gone through the process, our hearts will not take us where we want to go. And there are reasons for that, but we don't have time to cover them. So anyway. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki, all the assembled devotees ki, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanyebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.